In a world reshaped by disruption and driven by innovation, one summit has stood at the forefront of transformation: the Times Group ET Now Global Business Summit. Since 2015, this prestigious platform has brought together the brightest minds, visionary leaders, policymakers, and global pioneers to chart the course of business and society. With India's Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi as a guiding force, GBS has ignited bold conversations, unveiling groundbreaking strategies that drive progress and prosperity. As GBS 2025 takes center stage under the theme Evolve, Emerge, Expand, the world's foremost thought leaders explored the seismic shifts shaping the global economy and shed light on how can nations adapt. How can businesses thrive? How do we expand possibilities in an interconnected world? This is where the future is reimagined. The gala event was graced by none other than the Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi himself. In his address, he spoke about how his government has opened new opportunities for innovators and the private sector. Here are some takeaways from his address.
साथियों, विकसित भारत की यात्रा में हमारी सरकार प्राइवेट सेक्टर को बहुत अहम सहभागी मानती है। सरकार ने बहुत सारे नए सेक्टर्स को प्राइवेट सेक्टर के लिए खोल दिया है। सरकार अपनी तरफ से देशवासियों में विश्वास बढ़ाने के लिए पूरी शक्ति से काम कर रही है। हम इनोवेटर्स को भी एक ऐसे माहौल का विश्वास दे रहे हैं जिस पर वो अपने आइडियाज को इंक्यूबेट कर सकते हैं। हम बिजनेस को भी पॉलिसीज के स्टेबल और सपोर्टिव रहने का विश्वास दे रहे हैं। मुझे उम्मीद है कि ईटी की ये समिट इस विश्वास को और मजबूती देगी। इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ मैं अपनी बात समाप्त करता हूं।
Next in line was a very invigorating address by Shri Piyush Goyal, Minister of Commerce and Industry, India. Take a look.
India has always been at the forefront of trying to support global peace, global prosperity, dialogue, diplomacy. And through the last 10 years, I think India's own position around the world has significantly upped what we had inherited in 2014.
We started with the Bharat 6G vision document that was released by PM in late 22, and that is ubiquitous connectivity. Connectivity for all. That's already been accepted. We have a target of contributing 10% of the patents to 6G, of which, let me tell you, Navika, we are among the top 6 nations today in terms of contributing patents to 6G as we sit today.
We're here at the Global Business Summit 2025, and I'm in conversation with Mr. KB Balamurali, the CEO of SIRIUS Transworld Group. Sir, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
My pleasure to be here.
Sir, when we talk about rapidly evolving markets, in the context of logistics specifically, what impact does last mile delivery have on business outcomes?
So at the outset, to define logistics, people often confuse logistics with transportation. Logistics actually covers the entire ecosystem,
right,
from production to consumption. So the product cycle, starting from the demand forecasting to production planning, to storage, to the multimodal transportation, either air, sea, road or rail, and then going right up to the customer's doorstep. So at every single point, there is a touch point of logistics that is there.
Sure.
So that is how critical logistics is in the complete scalability of the business and delivering a cost-effective solution. And this has been going on for ages. So right from the time there is economy, there is logistics. So logistics is an integral part of any business or any economy per se.
Right. And so, building on that, what are some of the last mile delivery challenges specific to the Indian market, and how are you going about addressing them, on an everyday basis?
So there are 3 V's we can call it: velocity, validity, and visibility, which
sure,
is very, very important. So from an Indian context, though there has been a lot of development in this space of logistics, there is still a lot of room for scope for improvement. So especially in the visibility space where you get into 3-tier and 2-tier cities.
Right.
As a logistics service provider, we are the custodians of customers' cargo. So the customer is very, very keen to know where the cargo has reached. Has there been any disruptions in the way? So this is where these three factors are very, very critical. Velocity, when you talk about the speed of logistics, what is the best logistics solutions you can give? How we can mix up the various modes of transportation? How do you store those goods? How do you clear those goods?
Right.
From a visibility perspective, everything needs to be tracked. So today you order food online, right from cooking to delivery, everything is there. So similarly in logistics, that is what the customers expect. And the validity. So validity of the information that is there. The documentation is a very important segment of the logistics space. So if all these three things are covered, I think we are there as far as India is concerned compared to the other international competitors.
Well, building on these 3 V's, how do you believe they can impact the scale of business in this country? Because logistics-related bottlenecks, of course, prove to be quite a predicament in terms of any kind of tangible advancement.
So India is actually blessed. If logistics, close to 80% plus of the global trade happens by sea. And India is blessed with a very large sea coast. The east coast and west coast connecting, and we are pivotal in terms of the location. So we are right in the middle of the world, connecting both parts of the world. So that is where we can do a lot in terms of exploiting this, coming up with a better infrastructure in terms of the connectivity, and acting as a global hub.
Right.
This disruption, what you just mentioned about, was specifically felt during the COVID, when the global supply chains were drastically affected.
Right.
And that is when the importance of logistics came to light.
Sure.
Similarly, there is a crisis going on in the Red Sea, where there are disruptions happening, and India, from a geopolitical perspective, is in a balanced position. So we are close to both sides of the world. You see that even with the sanctions that are going on, there is a continuous supply
Right.
of goods and services that is happening out of India. So especially in the last few years, we have seen a lot of development also happening in terms of the infra space. But there is still a lot to be done. So it's an opportunity also for us to be there at the center stage as far as logistics goes.
And so what are some of the leading trends that you believe are well poised to transform the logistics industry as we know it?
Yeah. So as you know, technology and whether it is AI, technology, digitalization, it's there right at your doorstep. So the Gen Zs who are going to be the customers, your employees of tomorrow, they have grown up on these apps and
Right.
the best of technological platforms, and they will not have the patience to go through the traditional methods. So technology is going to be the one biggest impactor as far as this business is concerned as we go forward. And secondly, the global boundaries are getting smaller. So right from a project to a pizza.
Right.
So sitting in Dubai, you can order something. You can order a chart from Chandni Chowk and you get it in the evening.
Right.
You can have the heavy machinery moving from India to Africa.
Right.
So this is the scale of products that we are looking at. So this is where the future is going to be. The global boundaries are going to be invisible as we go forward. The customers are exposed to international choice that is available as far as goods, services, food or whatever is concerned. And this is where there is a big opportunity for logistics service providers.
And how might you characterize this state of tech penetration within the logistics industry at large?
So tech penetration, like any other industry, is there to stay. AI, big data, predictive analysis, these things are. So from a reactive kind of approach to a more predictive kind of an approach, this is where logistics can play a very important part. So there are seasonal trends that happen. There are geopolitical disturbances that come forth. And this is where technology can play a very, very critical part in terms of the inferences that are drawn using the big data. And having the nimbleness to bring about changes in the supply chain patterns so that you're there right where the demand is. So nothing is constant today. Things are keeping on changing. the global taste preferences, the demand and supply locations keep changing. Using technology, how can we leverage on these disruptions?
Sure.
This is where technology will play a very important part. Secondly, the ease of doing logistics. Government of India has also put a lot of thrust on the ease of doing logistics. So
Right.
technology, blockchain platforms, these things are very, very critical.
All right. Well, sir, if I could ask you to, give us a sneak preview into the future and do some crystal ball gazing for a moment, what do you believe will be the single most pivotal trend to impact the logistics industry in, say, the next 5 to 10 years?
So in this context, I would also, I represent a Transworld group, and we are a 50-year-old organization. And in the context of your question, we were the pioneers in feeder shipping between the Indian subcontinent and Middle East in early 80s. We were also the pioneers for coastal shipping in India. So earlier days, East Coast to West Coast, it was all by road. And by bringing in coastal sea route, there is a lot of bulk cargo we could move, a lot of carbon footprint that got positively impacted.
Sure.
So these kind of changes will keep on happening as we go forward. So the biggest change that is going to happen in this sector is going to be multimodal solutions. You will have sea, air, sea, road, rail. You see the infrastructure is also coming, it's improving. We are talking about India, Middle East corridor going right up to Europe. So, so that in that context, there is going to be road, there is going to be rail, there is going to be sea.
Right.
So these kind of combinations that come rather than the traditional route. When we spoke only about one mode of transportation,
right.
That is going to be a big change. The second change is going to be in terms of technology, which we spoke about, visibility, velocity, and validity of information. This is going to be the big change. And third thing is, we are talking about an increasingly different consumption pattern of the new generation that is coming up across the world. So the West as a consumer and East as a producer,
Provider.
that is also going to change. So
Right.
you see the economic equilibrium is shifting more towards East.
Right.
So like India is poised to be a trillion plus economy very soon. So these kind of changes will necessitate changes in the production pattern. So basically logistics is all about getting goods where the want is.
Right.
So when these things happen, how we can forecast the future trends, how we can leverage technology to be there before the change happens and before the disruption happens. So these are the kind of interesting times we look forward to.
Sir, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us, and we wish you all the very best for what lies ahead.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
In a thought-provoking panel discussion based on the topic of Collaboration Code, Uniting Economies, Shaping Futures, Sri Ram Krishnan, Chief Business Development Officer at National Stock Exchange of India, NSE, highlighted that the geopolitics and technological disruptions are the major risk factors.
I think the biggest risk today is geopolitics and possibly technological disruption. And I think everybody goes through this. NSE, in fact, is busy thwarting about 5 million attempts every single day to bring down our system. And I'm sure this is the case in most of the other international exchanges as well.
Yeah.
So this is real. And, today the new war is probably not going to be the war fought with soldiers, but it's more a war on one another's economy. And, this is very, very sad, if it happens. But I think we need to collaborate better and deal with these risks, in a spirit of collaborative success, I would say, with the objective of succeeding all together, not just, get into a spirit of one-upmanship where, one tries to get ahead of the others. So I think we have to uplift the world and, collectively we can do it.
We're at the Global Business Summit 2025, and I'm in conversation with the Chief Business Development Officer of the National Stock Exchange of India, Mr. Sriram Krishnan. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having me here today.
Certainly. Now, all reports indicate that the market capitalization of listed companies in India is on track to double within the next decade. What are the drivers that are propelling that mission, that vision?
I think the Indian economy is extremely well poised at this point in time in comparison to so many other countries.
Sure.
And given that we are in a sweet spot, it's a good time for companies to come in to the capital markets, raise money, and we are already seeing that. Last year, NSE was the IPO capital of the world, and we saw a record number of IPOs, and these companies have raised more than $19.6 billion. So this is a very prestigious moment for us, for NSE, because we are ahead of NASDAQ, and that doesn't happen so easily.
Right.
So I think there is a lot of scope for us to be optimistic about the future, given how well the economy will possibly perform. And with growing foreign participation as well as increasing retail participation in the markets,
Right.
Capital raising and easier reforms which the government is focused on, I think all of this is going to happen and we're going to see it. I think the government's focus has been on infrastructure in the last several years.
Overwhelmingly, yes.
And that's creating more opportunities even in B cities, B and C cities, tier 2, tier 3 cities.
Sure.
Essentially, the economy of every small place in India is becoming bigger. And that is how the nation building happens eventually. I think at this point in time, what we are witnessing is enormous retail participation in capital markets, which is a good sign.
Of course.
Which means people are aware of the potential of India's capital markets. And reforms are going to be focusing on making it more easier for people to access capital, growth capital. So I think we have all the ingredients of a successful formula, a successful recipe.
Sure.
All that we need to do is to execute it well, and then the future belongs to India, possibly.
All right. Well, Sriram, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us, and we wish you and the larger team at the National Stock Exchange of India all the continued success, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We have with us Rahul Taneja, partner Lightspeed, our next speaker, who's joining us to literally let us know what is fueling this transformation that we are all eagerly looking forward to.
We've all heard of the headlines, unequal growth or growth in poles or growth in contradictions. But here's the amazing thing to think about. It's not like people living in Bharat, which is tier 2 and beyond, do not have spending power. It's not like they do not have aspirations. It's not like they do not have knowledge. I think so far they've not been served, they've not had access, and this is what is the job that people like us need to serve. This is the time for us to invest heavily in creating businesses across Bharat. As Lightspeed, we have a portfolio of about 120 companies, of which already I think about 18 companies are catering to this segment of the population. And this is, I'll sound mercenary for saying this, but look, we are in the business of delivering returns to our investors. And for us, therefore, this is not a matter of, hey, let's uplift. This is a matter of core business strategy. And we are in this because we believe there is huge amounts of economic potential to be delivered here. Thank you so much.
We're here at the Global Business Summit 2025, and I'm in conversation with Rahul Taneja, partner at Lightspeed. Sir, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you, Pooja. Thanks for having me here. It's a wonderful summit, as every year, and I'm glad that we are here.
Now, sir, I'm going to dive right in. If I were to ask you to crystallize your India investment thesis in perhaps, a few overarching pillars or thoughts, how might you do so?
We've been in this market now for 17 years and a little bit more. And one of the things we've realized is India is unique. India is a young market and it's evolving. And therefore, what is really important is to have agility and understand that pools of value creation will emerge over a period of time.
Sure.
Today, as we see it, there are 4 core engines around which value creation is happening. And each of these are where innovation led by technology is changing efficiency or access or value creation. These 4 engines are consumer tech, e-commerce, financial services, and enterprise software. Now, every few years, you start seeing some new themes. So, for example, of late, there is a lot around climate, which is around electric mobility or solar power. But these four key themes are where we have our deepest thesis and where we believe large chunks of value creation will happen in the venture ecosystem.
So what makes the Indian economy especially resilient to all of those macroeconomic forces and microeconomic factors?
We are at a very interesting juncture in time where there are two forces that are acting, which you may think are contradictory to each other, but are really very synchronized with each other. The first fact is that technology is very rapidly changing. Now you've got AI, which is changing how people deal with work a lot more productively, efficiently.
Sure.
And B, we have a very large population, a young population, which is entering the workforce. Now, when you combine these two, you will see that India is very well placed. And really, it is up to us on whether we leverage these two trends to the most. If we can, then I think we are very uniquely placed globally, because no economy has the combination of both of these things, unlike us.
All the very best for what lies ahead.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Tapan Bhatt, COO at Ascendas First Space, opined on how the regulatory environment is changing the logistics space. He was speaking on the topic of resilient and sustainable supply chains navigating India's industrial evolution.
When I'm looking at regulations, honestly, regulations tend to overcorrect itself. So first, I think it will be very, very drastic, which will be sort of not supporting the business, because there's always the fear that businesses are going to abuse those regulations at some point if it's a little lenient. So there is that overcorrection that happens, and I think all of us believe that there are industry bodies that can help us liaise with the government to make sure that those regulations are sort of corrected, self-corrected over the next few years, right? So for example, that just happened recently with us was environmental clearance. So there was an environmental clearance where there was till 1.5 million square foot we can build without any environmental clearance. But there was a Kerala High Court judgment that came and said it's only 200,000, right? It went back to the old regulation. But I think with enough industry bodies sort of playing a part in it, we were able to sort of correct that to 1.5 million square foot, because otherwise warehousing as a business would become, redundant. Because for us, if it takes 9 to 12 months in such a low margin business, we won't be able to sort of deliver a product at a price that's acceptable to the tenants as well.
Well, we're here at the Times Group presents ET Now Global Business Summit, and I'm in conversation with Tapan Bhatt. He's the COO India Logistics at Ascendas First Space. Hi Tapan, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure, absolutely. Tapan, if you can shed some more light on, the key factors that are driving growth in India's industrial and logistics infrastructure sector. What's happening in that space?
Sure, so I'll actually break it into two pieces. One is industrial and one is logistics. Taking logistics first. So India's GDP has been growing phenomenally over the last 8-10 years, and I think that's looking as if it's going to continue for the next 5-7 years at least. With the growth in GDP, we are seeing a lot of growth in consumption as well. When there's a lot of consumption growth, we are seeing a lot of demand for warehousing because new products are getting added, the quantity of products that are required is also quite high. So logistics is seeing, a phenomenal change post-COVID. And another thing that's actually happening is a lot of our current supply was grade B, grade C assets. Now we are seeing a lot of people saying grade A assets are what are the need of the hour, because there's a lot of automation that's required for efficient fulfillment centers as well. So we are seeing a lot of demand on the logistics side for that reason.
Well, thank you so much, Tapan, for your time and for shedding light and sharing your insights on this topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Really appreciate for having me here.
We are here at the Times Group presents ET Now Global Business Summit, and I'm in conversation with Nilesh Mashru. He's the head leasing and marketing at Ascendas First Space. Thank you, Nilesh, for talking to me. When we talk about logistics, we have to talk about supply chain. So give me your sense of what's happening in the supply chain space, the role of your company in the area.
India's supply chain is going through a massive change, as we all keep speaking about it. For at least couple of decades, we've been hearing that we are one of the highest in terms of logistics cost to the GDP. And then there was a recent research by one of the government bodies which says we never were 13-14%, we were actually around 8-9%, which seems to be more realistic. And the aspiration is to go down to about 5-6% on the GDP. Right? If you look at any of the large organizations, be it manufacturing or FMCG or anybody in the retail sector, they would have similar aspirations which are in line with what the world even looks like. So India's supply chain will go through a massive change, and a large part of the thrust is going to be towards how do you optimize and make most efficient use of the resources that are available.
Thank you so much, Nilesh, for sitting down and talking to us.
It's a decade of work for all of us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.